Let's talk more about the naira and expectations for 2025 with the Chief Executive Officer of Financial Derivatives Company, Mr. Bismarck Rewane. Mr. Rewane, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you and the viewers.
Yeah, so we saw there the naira, it lost about more than 40% last year, but towards the end we saw a bit of stability. Mr. Lewu there expressing optimism, especially with the EFM. What do you see this year when it concerns to naira?
Our view is that the naira will appreciate moderately and modestly, trading to about 1550, and I'm talking about the parallel market here. About 1550 to anywhere between 1550 to 1600 at the end of the first quarter. Right now, the value of the naira is dependent on so many variables, many of them out of our control. But generally speaking, the arbitrage corridor between the official and the parallel rate has been reduced, and therefore the incentive to round trip rather than being engaged in productive activity is being reduced. So generally speaking, it should moderate, and also the whole target of bringing inflation down moderately is also going to help, because once inflation begins to taper, then the currency remains stable. Remember, the central bank governor said, "I'm not interested in the value of the currency, but the stability of the currency," which is very instructive when you think about it. The currencies are by nature volatile, but its stability is what is important as a goal.
So, Mr. Rewane, while there's optimism, there's also fears of sustainability, of the trend, which a lot of people have applauded. Do you see any risks that could disrupt this sustainability that we've enjoyed for about a month now?
You see, once the currency is efficiently priced, then you can now begin to hedge against that volatility. Volatility is a natural consequence of free markets, and that's why you have hedge products, which can be, you have options and other products which you can use to hedge against that. And once the investors and manufacturers and corporates know that this is the trajectory of the naira, and then they buy hedge products, right? Then they can actually factor that in all the way through the end of the year. Remember, the airline industry is the one that suffers most from price volatility, but they've been able to keep their profits reasonable because of the hedge against it, hedge against this inherent volatility in the market.
So can we expect that with this, hopefully sustained level of the naira, can it feed into drop of inflation, or will it be the other way around? Remember, 15% is the target for this year.
Well, the target is an aspiration. The reality is that we think that inflation could reduce from approximately 35% to somewhere like 27 or 25%. 15% rate of inflation is really very, very bullish and aspirational. But again, we are free to have our aspirations, but we as economists deal in the world of reality. And in the world of reality, we see more of 27%, anything between 25 and 27 on the optimistic side. And I would rather bet on that than bet on much optimistic scenarios.
Mr. Rewane, we were just discussing before I came on air on the best commodity for the year. Honestly, I thought it was gold, because we saw the leaps and bounds that gold recorded. But I mean, looking further, it does seem it's cocoa, and I wonder how much of that gain from that performance from cocoa that Nigeria enjoyed.
Well, Nigeria has always had an aspiration, I use the word aspiration again, of 250,000 tons a year. We've actually averaged at about 200,000 tons a year. We are the 5th largest cocoa producer. But the point is that the price of cocoa has gone up by over 400%, from $2,000 a ton to almost $12,000 a ton. And therefore, technically speaking and theoretically and practically, we should be seeing a boom in activity in Ekiti, Osun, Oyo State, Ondo State, which is the epicenter of cocoa production. Again, it takes 5 years for a new tree to begin with a new genetically modified cocoa pods to actually begin to mature. But definitely this is a major thing for Nigeria. We used to earn about $600 million. Now, this year, we are expecting to get at least $2.5 billion. And this is significant and a major achievement in terms of reducing the dependence of the economy on oil and gas. I think that's important. But one point you made when you started this program was you talked about the price of oil at $75, and you alluded to the expansion in the Chinese economy and the incentives and stimuli coming out from China. But what we didn't take into consideration was that this price of 75.3, that's the highest point it has been for a few months. It is also dependent on the fact that for the first time in over 23 years, there was an attack, a terrorist attack on the mainland of the United States. What happened in New Orleans yesterday? I think that's very important, because after 9/11, that was the last time there was a terrorist attack on the United States. This heightens the probability that anything is possible in the Middle East, and therefore the price of oil, which is dependent on one, production, two, demand, and now the fear and terrorist factor, which are now come back in. So we might be looking in a very perverse way at the fact that price of oil will be much higher. Our projection that oil will trade at about $70 a barrel. But in a world that you don't know what's going to happen next, especially with this development, we have to be very cautious and build into the scenarios, what if this happens? We now see that something has happened, and on the first day of the year, for that matter, in New Orleans. So again, we don't know what's going to happen, but we should play on the side of caution. We think that the price of oil will stay at $70, but anything is possible with Iran, Syria, the new Trump administration, and what's happening in Ukraine and Russia. So the commodities market is up in the air.
Yes, up in the air. Mr. Bismarck Rewane, thank you so much for, opening our eyes to some realities that we could expect this year, especially with that news from New Orleans. But thank you, Mr. Bismarck Rewane. I hope we will do this year together as we did last year.
Thank you for having me, and Happy New Year to everybody. Thank you.